That is what you should be looking for. A man who could stand up and do what he has to do.
That is why I was trying to
Don't
get
just
to.
look at. That is what you should be looking for. A man who could stand up and do what he has to do.
That is why I was.
That is what you should be looking for. A man who could stand up and do what he has to do.
That is why I was trying to
Don't
get
just
to.
look at dollars and cents. Where is the line of too young? And is it at 18?
And if they leave these children unattended, the future does not look bright at all.
Guys, what do you think church people are afraid of when it comes to speaking openly about sex?
This is before marriage?
Before, yes.
Wait. So,
Listen.
Calm down. Hold on. This is before marriage. While Welcome back once more to another edition of the Talk Heavy podcast. I'm of course yours truly, Justice. We're here to keep the vibe light, but the talk heavy. All right, and of course we definitely have a heavy conversation. We're gonna have a heavy talk this evening. It's a wonderful Wednesday evening right here at Mended Studios in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, you want to say welcome and a good evening to each and every one of you viewing live wherever you're from. All right, internationally or right here in the Caribbean. Yeah. Good evening to all our viewers on the live right now on Facebook, Mended Studios Facebook page. You know, we always have our loyals. They jump on as soon as they see Mended Studios live. One time, rapido. I love that. But I want to encourage each and every one of you to share the live. Share, because we're talking heavy today. Topic for today is, should abortions be legal? All right. And I know a lot of you are going to be expecting well-balanced, fruitful, and constructive conversation. All right. And to have this conversation with me in studio is Mr. Brandon Best, one of the premium gospel artists in Trinidad and Tobago, right? What's going on, bro?
What is going on? Everybody, Trinidad and Tobago Mended Studios, talk heavy, boy.
Yeah.
Yo, I'm very happy to be on the inside with you guys to have this conversation and to discuss with the panel that is here. You know, so good night. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. And joining us via Zoom, I want to call them my sisters, right? Very, very intelligent, well-spoken, beautiful ladies in the likes of Miss Karen Elias, Omega Francis, and Evangelica, another gospel artist on the inside, right? What's happening, ladies? Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good evening,
Hey guys.
Justice.
Good evening. It's good to be here.
All right, awesome. It's really good to have you all. All right, so should abortions be legal? Illegal? Well, legalized, right? This coming out, of course, from recent trending posts, conversations coming out of the U.S., especially since the Supreme Court overturned the decision to determine whether abortion should be allowed, right, in various states. Right, with some of the states now making it illegal. Yeah. Just to give a bit more context, here's a quick report courtesy CBS Evening News. And we have a short clip you want to run to start off, yeah?
All right, tonight, the fallout from the Supreme Court ruling about abortion rights is growing. This after 3 straight days of protests across America. The ruling has left some legal confusion. There's also a surge in demand for over-the-counter emergency contraceptive pills, forcing retailers like Walmart and CVS now to limit purchases. Here's CBS's Jan Crawford.
From New York to Los Angeles, protesters took to the streets, with angry crowds squaring off with jubilant supporters over the historic ruling that ends a federal constitutional right to abortion and allows states to decide whether or not to ban it. Largely peaceful, there were scattered episodes of vandalism and another attack on an anti-abortion pregnancy center like this one in Virginia. With the ruling, at least 8 states have made abortion illegal and more than a dozen more expected to ban or severely restrict it. But abortion rights supporters in conservative states are not giving up the legal fight. In Louisiana, abortions resumed after a state court judge temporarily blocked Louisiana's trigger law. In others, abortion rights groups are arguing their state constitutions give more protections than the federal constitution and contain a right to an abortion.
Carrie Galloway, Planned Parenthood, Utah.
A woman no longer has bodily autonomy to make decisions about her reproductive health.
Right. So as we see a lot of states making it, they're banning abortions from continuing, right?
Yeah.
There was actually a draft decision by the Supreme Court that was leaked, stating from one of the Supreme Justices, Samuel Alito, right? He writes in the document labeled as the opinion of the court, right? It is time to heed the Constitution and return to the issues of abortion to the people's elected representatives, meaning the federal court wouldn't have a say on whether each state legalizes or keeps keeps it legal or makes it illegal. Right? No draft decision in the modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly while the case was still pending. The unpreceded revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what was already the most controversial case in history, right? One of the most controversial cases, and we see a lot of people protesting.
Yeah.
And abortion isn't just something, that happens in the U.S. It happens all over the world, and a lot of the times we tend to see a lot of things that happen in the more Western countries, America, Canada, etc. It kind of trickles down to the Caribbean and Trinidad. What are your, just throwing it out there, what are your views on this decision in particular, and could it have the potential to influence Trinidad and Tobago? Let me start with Miss Elias. Ladies first.
I think that, they like to say when the U.S. sneezes, Trinidad does get it cool.
Right.
So I think that is exactly what is going to happen. I think it hasn't started as yet publicly, but I think that there are groups maybe lying low, maybe formulating their strategies, maybe getting their legal counsel, and they are doing their own groundwork to make sure that this does not happen in Trinidad. So I think that sooner rather than later, we will see this, or we will see some repercussion of it, whether it be in the form of a protest or a statement by any NGO that is connected to this decision, or even something in the court to make sure that it doesn't even go that far. As of now, abortion is still illegal in Trinidad and Tobago. But I think given these recent protests, it is going to fuel the fight for those who in this country have been fighting to make it legal in Trinidad.
Now we see in two sides, pro-life and pro-choice.
Yeah.
All right. Pro-choice people basically, fighting, pro-choice supporters, that is, fighting for the right to, this is what I've been hearing, especially from women. This is my body.
Right.
No one should have the autonomy to take the decision whether I want to carry on the term of pregnancy and have this child or not. You understand? And of course, we have Omega. Omega, what is your response to this exactly? What do you think?
The my body, my choice statement.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's truth. That's inherently true. I mean, it was, let me do a comparison. When COVID was, now the space, people was shouting, "My body, my choice. I don't need to vaccinate.
Vaccine.
I don't need to put on a mask." So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, if they can have bodily autonomy for an infectious disease, why can't a woman have bodily autonomy to something that is not infectious, that only really affects her personally, physically, mentally, psychologically, financially? Why can't she have autonomy over that?
Brandon, you want to respond?
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate Omega's point of view, and I appreciate the conversation as well. My response generally to this is that is the issue here really the right of the woman's body, or alone, or is it the right as well of the child? The child has that child being a living human being, that child being another individual, another human in that body. The woman has I believe that all women have all rights and autonomy to their bodies. That's their body. But then when you carry the body of someone else, what is the right that you have over their life? That's the thing. So it's not just as simple as saying it should be compared to like COVID, because I feel as though your decision doesn't impact the human life of another person. It doesn't short circuit the life of another person, but that individual who is still forming, who is coming out of the womb, who should be soon coming out of the womb, that individual doesn't have the ability to like speak up for themselves, to say anything. There's no protection for that person. So it's no longer just simply the right of just a woman and her body, because it's not just one individual in the conversation. Whenever you speak to abortion, you have to consider the fact that it's not just one person in the room. It is the mother and the child, and then you have to go along the lines, if the father is there, that the father should be in the conversation as well.
So you're saying, because
I have a counter. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a counter to that, because the general period when a woman gets an abortion or considers an abortion, scientifically, it's not a fetus yet. It's not a baby. It's not an individual. It's not a person yet. It's actually something like an embryo that has nothing decipherable to a human being. So using your argument, then it wouldn't hold water if scientifically at that point in time it's not a person, it is not an individual, because it needs the mother to stay alive to even exist. It cannot exist on its own. So then that argument, I will say, is not as strong, a strong one.
Yeah, I disagree, because there are many medical studies that have shown that life begins at conception, that once that egg is fertilized, they actually say that embryo is producing X and Y chromosomes. It's already have in it organs ready to be developed. They consider that, most scientists actually agree that they consider this a human life. They don't just simply consider it cells, as people would want to call it, but they consider this an actual human in formation. And sometimes the argument is about viability, which I understand what you're saying. Viability speaks to the fact that could this child live outside of the womb of the mother? But we now live in a technological age where we even have a lot of, especially for richer countries, there's a lot of technology where you have children that may be premature, that can survive outside of the mother's womb. But if it's only based on viability, just the fact that could we allow a child to survive outside of the mother's womb, but when do we actually have the moral ground to stay? When does that life end? Because if we are saying it's just about viability and technology is improving, but then when do we say, okay, this human life becomes valuable enough that I can say that I can take its life, or I can allow it to live? Like at some point, because the more that we keep pushing it, if we push it on viability, the more we keep pushing it, we'd never have a standard, so then everybody could say, well, no, we consider 6 weeks today, and then next week could be 14 weeks, and then the next week could be 24 weeks, and then it keep on going, we keep on moving the goalposts because we're considering viability alone. But it's not, viability isn't the best thing to stand on, because technology in itself has changed. People can actually, premature babies have survived. They have actually gone through seasons of development outside of the womb, and they have survived that process even under. But it's not necessarily always rich, poor countries that do it, but you have rich countries that do it. So the technology is there. So there is accessibility for a human life to continue even outside of the womb. So I don't know. I can't say that. I don't agree that the cell or the embryo is not a human being as yet. I think there are a lot of doctors and there are a lot of medical scientists that have already said life begins at conception. Like that is what you get. They just say, life begins at conception. Then we have the arguments of that, they say, okay, let's consider when the human heartbeat starts. They might say 6 weeks. And then they say, all right, well, let's consider when they start to move. But you always have to consider something new on determining whether or not this life is valuable. So the question is, when is the life valuable? When does the baby's life become valuable?
I see what you're saying. Such, if feel free to jump in at any point there. Shout outs to Ariane Boris and Tamara Ram Singh. Guys, remember this is a very heavy conversation and you can be part of it as well. So give us a call 4699112. Remember to tag someone and share, right? Ariane is saying, Brandon, an unborn has no rights. A child isn't declared alive. They take their first breath. Until they take their first breath, I think she's saying, there is no air in the womb. If the laws passed were about the babies, then we would have less children to foster care.
So if the child is at 9 months, that child is not alive until they come out of the womb. We can't say that medically. That's incorrect. That is clearly false because you have to determine that child is alive all the time the child was alive, and we monitor their heartbeat, their growth, their progress. And because if the child was dead, then the child should not be in the mother's womb. They would consider that a stillbirth, right? But the child has to be alive to be born.
Tamara is saying, you wanted to jump in there, Omega?
Oh, Eve, I think.
Eve?
No, well, the just to correct the stillbirth part of it, if a baby, I think a stillbirth is really literally a baby that is born. You go through labor, deliver them, and they expire.
Correct, yeah.
Or they die right at the point of when they are actually viable, 9 months, 8 months, that kind of thing. Also, to the previous point, the viability was already determined by actual scientists, by actual doctors, to be around 24 weeks. Anything before that, a child even removed from the womb there's no technology that would allow a child before 24 weeks to survive, and even 24 weeks is pushing it actually.
Well, yeah, today there aren't technology today, but 200 years we didn't even have technology that could allow it to even be possible for it to come out in 24 weeks. That's the thing too. So 200 years ago, could a child have survived outside the mother's womb at 24 weeks? No, they didn't have technology available. But 200 years later, we do have technology available. So that means that as time progresses and as we continue to evolve and as we get smarter and as we learn new things, it may be even possible for it to happen. So then again, where does the value of the life become? That's my thing. So when does life become really valuable in the eyes of humans? So, but I let Eve they go.
Yeah, Eve, go ahead, Eve.
Hi, good evening again. You all hear me good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so I hear that we dissect the life within the womb. We say when heartbeat starts and when certain things form and all these different things, and we dissect life within the womb, right? But I honestly believe that a lot of people who are pro-life, they're not really pro-life, but they are pro-birth. Because I understand that within the womb, the baby forms, and when it is the baby's doing a certain thing, when it is they have the abortions, you see the baby wincing in the womb, and all these different things. But what takes place when the child is born? And to me, that is, okay, so let me just say that I have very radical opinions as it pertains to this. It's not a matter of if anyone judges me. I think anybody knows me would know that I wouldn't care. However, my opinions are very radical. And it's radical because I believe in relating. You understand? I believe in being relevant and understanding a thing. And if it is you don't know what it's like to be unwanted, and if it is you don't know what it's like to be an abused child, and if it is you don't know what it's like to be wanting to die as a child, I really can respect your opinion. And that's just me, right? So the thing is, I'm very passionate. And when I get passionate, I'll be real passionate.
Come true,
and
come
it's
true.
not to say like I just anything personal or anything. So it's nothing personal about anybody on the panel. But I just really passionate when it is I am into that topic, right? And I'm saying all this to say that we study life in the womb and what the abortion does and affect the fetus and all these different things. But this might sound, very weird, but I remembered someone asking me, you ever saw what an abortion does to the fetus in the womb? And honestly, I didn't tell the person this, but honestly, my first thought was, if it is, I have to take, or the fetus has to take 5 minutes of whatever pain that is, and go straight back to the father, instead of taking years of abuse on this earth. Yeah, I prefer the child go back to the father. And that's just me. As I said, I am speaking on behalf of me. Mind you, yes, I am a believer in Christ Jesus. I am a believer in the word. I am a believer who believes that murder is not right. Yet still, I can't endorse that. I can't endorse, because think about it like this. If it is somebody is willing to put the fetus through that, if somebody is willing to watch a 8-month baby, 7 months, because they have these ridiculous times that they do these things, right? If it is you're willing to put that baby through that and so well formed, what are you gonna do to that child? I don't know. That is my opinion, as my thoughts on the matter. A lot of people are pro-birth, but they're not really pro-life, because we're talking about quality of life outside of the womb.
Yeah, I agree. I agree about the quality of life, because I am pro-life, but I'm also pro-life continuously. The issue, I think, thank God we're in Trinidad. So the way that we view pro-life and pro-choice is not exactly the same as America would. Pro-life and pro-choice is actually a political statement. If you're pro-life, you have to have an agenda behind that. If you're pro-choice, you have to have an agenda behind that. More likely, if you're pro-life, you're Republican. Right. If you're pro-choice, you're probably Democrat. But we're in the Caribbean, and thank God we don't have those rules. And as a Christian, being pro-life for me means that it's not just about pro-birth, and I understand what Eve is saying, but it's also about the fact that true religion is that we take care of the widows and the orphans. If a mother she doesn't have the financial stability to be able to take care of that child, and she chooses to adopt or give her child up to adoption, I believe as a church, we should step in, and we have to do what we should do for children.
So you're saying regardless of the quality of life that this child might face, all right, whether it be abuse or whatever the case is, you're saying that the responsibility of the mother is still to follow through with the term of pregnancy, bring the child to life. Right, that's.
I think as long as her life is not at risk,
But here's my thing, Brandon, and to a point I could relate to the pro-choice, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to be as neutral as possible. Yeah. So we know for sure that this child go and have a terrible life. Yeah. How it is we're supposed to sit here and say, listen, whatever happens. The church will have to step up. But when the reality is sometimes some of these children, these individuals go undetected from even the church. Mm-hmm. You understand? So how do we cope with that?
Yeah, but the issue isn't an emotional one. And so that, at least this is for me. Like if you're standing from, so even we both, I think, I don't know if everybody in the group, but I know Karen, Eve, you, myself, well, all of us, we're Christians. So we have a biblical standpoint where this is concerned, that we don't have final authority on any human's life, regardless of the circumstances that they may go through. It's not necessarily up to us. God is making statements before a child is born, saying, before you were even formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, and then I predestined or ordered something out for you. So he has already a plan for these children, and a part of that process may be them going through the life that they've gone through. Like, you've gone through some bad things, Jezreel. I have gone through some bad things. I'm sure Eve has gone through some bad things. Omega, Karen has gone through some bad things. And I'm talking, and I say bad things, I'm not trying to make it sound light. We have gone through some grave situations in life. I'm very sure if we took the time to sit down and just ask everybody about what we have been through to be alive today, I think the viewers may be crying by the end of the conversation because we have all gone through tough times. But God is the one ultimately who is taking a human being through the entirety of his life. What we are doing here is having a conversation on whether or not we believe that God is powerful enough to do exactly what he's supposed to do with humans, which is take care of them. Because we are saying, I don't trust God enough so that he can take care of this life, because all I see logically is I see the options, I see the challenges, I see the situations, and I'm saying to myself, yo, God is not powerful enough to get this child to safety. He's not powerful enough to really take care of this child down the road. But it's really not up to us. We have to play our part as believers, as people, as moral people. We should play our part. But then it's God is in charge of this universe, and if we don't see the sovereignty of God in all of this, well, then there's a bigger issue here, because the reality is that he's the one ultimately that's guiding the life of a child. Just because I see bad circumstances, or I could forecast, doesn't mean I foreknow. I don't know if God is going to take that child and turn that boy into a Joseph situation. Prison, get sold into slavery, I don't know, but comes out to be the king of the palace. Those type of things, those type of situations are all up in God's hands.
I see what you're saying. I want to ask a particular question, but we will come back to that point, right? I want to jump across to Miss Elias. I know you've had direct contact with women who would have had abortions. You work closely with these people. You also serve in terms of counseling and whatnot. What is the mental state of a woman before and after an abortion?
Okay, so I will talk from my experience, and then I will talk from the experience that I've gathered from other women. So as you rightly said, I am a post-abortion peer counselor, which right there would tell you that that's a serious thing. There is something called PTSD that's attached to the abortion decision. The abortion decision is considered you're trying to fix a problem that's not really a problem. You're trying to attack a situation, really and truly, that if you just sat down and thought about it and analyzed it, you'd realize that there are other ways and there are other options. So when a woman realizes that she's pregnant and she does not want this pregnancy, it's like something snaps in your head. Like, oh my gosh, I have to get rid of this. I have to get rid of this now. Oh my gosh, especially when you have students. What am I going to do? How am I going to feed the child? Am I going to finish school? What am my mother going to think? What's my father going to think? What is the father of the child going to say to this? All these questions that goes through her mind. And if she's not able to sit and properly analyze this situation, she immediately jumps at the option of abortion. Or even if you find, because abortion is not segregated to single people, there are married women as well who get abortions because they are in abusive relationships, and it's either they don't want the child because they are in an abusive relationship, or the husband demands of them that they abort the baby. There are also young women whose parents demand of them that they abort the child. So there are so many factors that constitute a decision to abort. But there are two main things that come out of it: lack of support or a broken heart. Lack of support or a broken heart. If a woman has support, she will not do it. If a woman's heart is healthy and her mind is healthy, she would not abort. But she goes down the road because of these factors. After an abortion, she has to return to life to normal, although life will never be normal again. You can never be unpregnant. Never. And science has proven that remnants of each baby after each pregnancy remains in the woman. That's a proven scientific fact. So you are literally walking around, even after your womb has been cleaned, scraped, flushed, however the process was done, there is still literally genetic molecules and genetic remnants that remain with a woman. So you can never become unpregnant. So she is forced now to go back to life as normal when life is never normal. And that, have you ever Have you ever experienced motion sickness? Motion sickness is when the brain is confused because the brain is seeing the body moving, but the body is literally sitting. And that's what causes motion sickness. So it's like that. You know something traumatic has happened to you. You know you've had a life-altering experience. You know you'll never be the same again, yet still your environment forces you to go back to work, to go back to school, to study, to be a good person, quote unquote, to do all the things that you were doing. Yet still, your body knows it has gone through a traumatic experience. You as a woman know you have terminated a life, which is basically one of the reasons, and this is my view, as Eve would have said, this is my view, one of the reasons, just one, why a woman was created. A woman was created to bring forth life. So when the woman makes a decision to go against the very thing that she was created for, it tugs at your heart, it breaks your heart, it messes with your mind. For me personally, I would have seen a few psychiatrists after the issue. I went through literally weeks of crying every single day. I was at the verge of a nervous breakdown. I could not eat, I could not sleep, I could not function. I was in school, I failed all of my exams, had to redo a whole year of UE after because I just could not function. And that's because I'm an emotional person. I wore my emotions on my sleeve. People knew something was wrong with me, but I still couldn't tell them because my decision to abort was to hide my actions. I am a Christian. I always have been a Christian. I did this when I was a Christian, and knowing I was not supposed to do it, I did it to hide my action of sex before marriage, because I didn't want anybody to know that that's what I was doing. So here I am living a double life, having a double standard, going against what my body is created to do, and I literally cracked. But there are women out there who, life is normal, quote unquote, they're having sex or, they're with their husband, etc. But it still breaks you. And that has always been my issue with abortion. Having gone through it, I understand what they don't tell you. So to be honest with you, Justice, I don't even have this conversation right now. You get me on a real good day. Because I don't even have these conversations. The pro-life, pro-choice conversation, I done with that long time ago because there are flaws in each argument. There are holes in each argument. Like Eve said, we don't consider the afterlife. So even, if we're saying, yes, have the baby, yes, okay, pro-lifers, what is your plan in place? What is your strategy for taking care of the child? We have to understand that. And then the pro-choicer says, y'all don't want us to have a right of our body. Yes, we do. The opposite of life is not choice. The opposite of life is death. What we are trying to prevent is the termination of a life. And I don't even say murder anymore. I don't say that. I say termination of life. And that's because I have worked with post-abortive women. I understand the psychology behind abortion. I understand that you can't see baby clothes, you can't smell baby powder. Some women can't vacuum their carpets because the sound of the vacuum causes them to shake and go into tremors. Why? Because it reminds them of the sound of the suction that was happening. So there's a psychology that breaks a woman after having an abortion. So that is what I am most concerned about. What does it do to you that people don't tell you? What are the repercussions of your action that people don't tell you? So to me, this is a heart issue. And if I am to go a bit deep, if you allow me to go a bit deeper, abortion is just the fruit of it. What is the root of it? Because Eve said something very important just now. She says, if you will only understand abuse if you've gone through abuse. You only understand hurt if you've gone through hurt. Guess what? If I'm hurting, I won't want somebody else to hurt. So I will make the decision to terminate life. If I wasn't hurt, I would not make the decision to terminate life. So we actually have to get to the bottom of the problem, which is societal breakdown.
Thank you.
Abortion is the fruit of societal breakdown. And if we don't deal with the home, deal with the community, and deal with the school, then we'll always be out here balling. Should it be illegal or should it not be legal? When really and truly, that is not the discussion.
Yeah, man.
Wow, very, very well put. Just want to throw out a question there, right? And anybody could feel free to jump in and respond. Do you think that the aftermath of having this child as a result of abuse, right? So let's say we can't say the R word because of restrictions on YouTube and on other social media platforms, right? But that's what I'm talking about. You all know what I'm talking about. So a woman is grievously assaulted, right? She happens to get pregnant, having the child, that trauma and that pain that she feels, is it the same as after the aftermath of having an abortion? Is that pain synonymous?
I can't say the pain is synonymous because I've never gone through that sort of grievous assault. But in my opinion, adding abortion on top of that makes matters worse. It's adding a problem on top of a problem. So it's trying to solve a problem with a problem. So there may be a sense of relief, but there is still that psychological response to the person. So it is best to deal with the trauma of the rape. I apologize.
That's all right.
Deal with the trauma of the assault. I think you're accustomed to this. Deal with the trauma of the assault, and in tandem, coach or guide the young woman through the process of carrying this baby, going through her emotions and stuff like that, as opposed to, because you're going to still have to deal with the trauma of the assault. Terminating the life does not remove the trauma of the assault. It brings some sort of relief, but there's still the memory of it. So as opposed to trying to use abortion to deal with the trauma of the assault, let's deal with the trauma of the assault and not have to compound it with the traumatic experience of terminating the life.
All right.
I would counter that with yes, I agree that there would be a sense of relief when you decide to abort after a grievous assault. And I think that relief is important, and carrying a child to term and taking care of that child that is a product of that assault is, in fact, I would say, re-traumatizing you every single day, especially if the child looks like the spitting image of the perpetrator. That is re-traumatizing. And I have seen and I've heard women speak about that experience of watching the child. They made the decision to keep the child after the assault and everything like that. But then the child comes out looking exactly like the perpetrator. And if, they were close to the perpetrator, acting also like the perpetrator, little mannerisms, and they're being re-traumatized every single day. And it's something that I think that needs to be noted, that it doesn't just, having the child doesn't just heal you. It also does not remove the initial trauma. None of that is removing the initial trauma of the assault. I don't think anything can remove that trauma. That stays with you for pretty much forever. It's imprinted on you. But I think it is important to note that a woman should have the choice to not be re-traumatized every single day by the product of that assault.
Yeah, well, I think I tend to, and I hear what Omega is saying, but I think I still tend to agree with Karen on this one, whereby don't compound it. I don't believe you should compound the issue. And if it is, I think there are options. I think adoption is an option that we have as well. If the mother may not be able to live with the child physically, I think that there are aids available. So adoption is one of those things. I think other than compounded with, as Karen is saying, termination of life, I think using another method, because going to term and having a child is one thing, but if it may be deemed that she may suffer more psychological damage by raising the child physically, but then I think instead of terminating their life, consider the options that are available, like adoption, like those aids that are available for children.
Actually saw one person under a post made that suggestion, and then someone countered with it by saying adoption is, in a lot of these adoption homes, orphanages and whatnot, the children actually suffer a lot more.
Yeah, but yes, they do. That is the reality. That is the reality in our country and a lot of places around the world.
Because look at what happened. Some stuff would have been raised recently.
Yes,
that happened for decades in some of these children homes and whatnot.
It is true. It is true that the care of children is not the greatest in when they go through the system. But we have also seen, so that is a statistic, but we've also seen positive statistics as well. There are pretty good counselors and social workers that do really good work with children, that actually get them into good homes. There are some that make it out of the system and actually get into good families. Statistically, in America, actually, Christians adopt 2 times more children than secular people, that they go out to actually adopt children and actually aid in that process of children who don't have mothers and fathers or parents who are unable to help them. So, I mean, but I am not going to dispute the fact that it is a very horrible system that we have. And I mean, we live in a sinful world and there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And this is one of those things. But still, we still have a lot of good, hardworking people in these industries who are trying their best to give the best care for those children. I can't say that's every single person that is involved in the industry, every single social worker, every person that has a home. That is not every single person that is out to damage the life of a child. And we have to consider that there are those persons who will do their best and can do their best to assist some of these children as they move through the system.
I think I would want to get like some hard statistics based on the outcomes of children who pass through the system, right, of being in children homes and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is it that the vast majority have the horror stories they had, whether they were molested in the children's homes or they end up having to run away because of poor care? Or is it that the ones that have positive outcomes are the majority?
Yeah,
you understand? So I would want to know.
Get some good,
I would want to research that.
Yeah, I think most of us probably would have one or two. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Also, there is something to note about the adoption industry, essentially, is that people who are looking to adopt tend to look for babies. They tend to not look for older children who they might see as already set in their ways of particular behaviors, because they're a little bit harder to break in, for want of a better term. So usually babies get adopted faster. So it isn't often a very foolproof way to say that, well, the adoption is a great idea, because once a child moves past a certain age, then they somehow tend to become unadoptable by a lot of people. So therefore we continue their life in these homes, and in the US situation in foster care, which foster care is a separate devil on its own, as far as I've read and heard about. That's a separate situation on its own that could create traumatized children, even those who weren't traumatized beforehand, to get into the adoption system.
But if we're saying, I'm just thinking, right? If that point you just made, that babies are more adoptable than children who are set in their ways with the older ones, then isn't that more of an encouragement for the woman to have the baby? Because now that we're seeing that you made it clear that the babies are more chosen by parents looking for children.
Yeah, but babies don't stay babies for very long, huh?
Yeah, but it, I don't know.
The thing is, to be an adoptive parent, you have to go through, which is rightfully so, you have to go through a certain level of red tape, and that is necessary, because you want to make sure that adoptive parents are above, reproof, all that kind of stuff, right? So they, it is not necessarily going to enter a situation where it's baby is born, baby gets evenly moved into foster care. Babies get within a year they get adopted. It's not always that clean cut, that smooth process.
Yeah, I get that, but I think there's the system is normally like there's a list of people who were assessed previously, waiting for a baby. You understand?
Yeah.
So that's our next thing to explore.
I think it's a good thing that we have people at least that want to adopt children, and the more that is available as well, I think that's good. It goes back to what Karen said, though, as the root cause of the issue being societal ills and issues that we have. I think when you look at it from that standpoint as well, you'd realize that, as a society, we also need to step up. And there's a lot of work that we have to do to support, to adopt, to make sure that the systems are clean. I mean, we don't live in a perfect world, but if we see the challenges, and this is where my issue sometimes lies, that we see the challenges, but then we don't act on it. We converse on it. So we converse, and then we converse, and we divide the arguments, and we continue to divide the arguments, but then we don't get the action that brings about real resolution and real change to help the situation along,
Yeah. I'm gotta say shout outs to everyone sharing the live. Remember to continue sharing. All right, once you jump in, and we want to hear from you all out there. We've seen the comment section blowing up. Give us a call, 469-9112, or if you're a little shy, you want to send us a voice note to that same number, you could also do that as well, right? Good evening to Rich Angel. He's saying therapy is needed if you don't want to be re-traumatized, my dear. I guess he would have addressed that Omega, I think. Yeah. Good evening to Monique Allen, all the way out there in Tallahassee, Florida. She's saying the decision made last week by SCOTUS, Supreme Court, right, of the United States, was reversed after 50 years. But it's so much deeper than abortion. It's strictly political. The government is trying to flex their muscles. They toss around the phrase murder babies, but can't come up with a solution to keeping children safe in schools. Wow. The reversal of this law will also affect women of color more than our European counterparts. There are so many layers of this, and for the record, I'm pro-life, but I also understand that it's a woman's choice. Be blessed, beloved. Yeah. How would you respond to that?
Guys, can I say something, please?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
I feel like I was just like waiting to exhale. Listen, so much was said, and I had so many points from people, but I'm going to try to make it concise. All right, so Karen spoke about her situation and her experience, and I could definitely relate. Over 20 years ago, I had an abortion, and it was a botched abortion. I almost died. At a point, I could not even look at a metal hanger without wincing, so that was a process. So I understand the process of healing and stuff like that as it pertains to an abortion. I also understand two other aspects of abortion, whereas I am actually a result of a failed one, right? That is one other aspect. And then the next aspect is when I found out I was pregnant with my son, the doctors advised that I terminate because I was in a very unhealthy state. And I was far along, I did not know, and all these different things, and I was not a believer then. However, there was something on the inside of me that made me make the decision just not to abort. So check me now, because I was already going into 4 months for the rest of the pregnancy. I just prayed, oh God, let him have 10 fingers, 10 toes, let him do be mongoloid, let him do be, because it was a lot, right? I wasn't a Christian as yet. And I can stand and say that, because I survived and I'm here, that I could be pro-life, right? And then I could say that, that God will provide, and, even though they tell you to terminate, I could stand with faith, right? Now, but that's not everyone's story. Not everyone lives according to our book. You know what I mean? And another thing I want to say is the reason that I went and had the abortion at a place that really wasn't known or whatever was because it was illegal. And it's not something where you're going to see, hey, you know, where I could do this thing, right? It wasn't something that was well known at that time, and it's not something I was really not ashamed of to say. So this is how I think about it, right? As Karen said, this is a heart issue. So whether it is out of fear, whether it is out of lack of faith, whether it is you're just out of timing, because pregnancy, it's not contraception, abortion, not contraception. Whether it is a heart issue, and if it is a heart issue, then chances are, even if this thing is made illegal, people are still going to find ways to do it. Correct. Because I found a way to do it. You know what I mean? So what I think we're doing is, as of now, let me just make it clear that I believe that whatever law comes forth, God allow it. That is me, right? So it's not to say that I look into fight to overturn the overturn. That is not what I'm saying. At the end of the day, the overturn is here and God is the boss. However, what I'm saying is what I believe it will do is, I don't believe that is honestly, I don't believe it's a step forward for Christianity or human life, because I honestly believe that we are just going to see a lot of more retarded babies, a lot more abused babies going to be dumped in rivers. People are going to go through botched abortions. They're probably going to die. I mean, this is a reality for me because of, and this is one experience I had, but it was a reality for me because I almost died. You know what I mean? And I'm not the only one, you know? So I'm just thinking that, yes, I understand that life is important and all these things, but I just can't help but think of the ramifications of this. And I don't think people really understand that there are going to be ramifications.
I'm thinking two things, right? Just as you say, you mention, people, might see babies and God forbid, in different places and whatnot, because there would still be people who going to do it.
Correct.
And just as Eve said, she found a way. Yeah. Is it that if it's legalized, it's going to be somewhat an incentive for people to be more promiscuous and use it as a means of contraceptive, right?
Let me just say something there, right, Justin?
Or just as Eve said, what going to be the ramifications on both ends?
I personally believe, because it's like this. The other day they legalized gay marriage, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that people you have a choice? You have a choice. Does that mean that as a believer now, because they legalize gay marriage, that I just gonna be like, wait, boy, I decide married, I guess? Everybody has a choice, and it's a heart issue. A law is not going to change anything or give incentive or anything. If it is you don't have a ramification for murder. I mean, people are still killed. People still are. People still do these things, and they have ramifications for these things. So all I'm saying is, you think that you put something in place for abortion, and you think that there's a win for this, but nah, and the thing is, the people that are messing up is the people that really, okay, come like this, and this is just my thought, right? What percentage of men are aware and in agreement with unprotected sex when they have it, compared to women? Is my question right, boy? What I'm saying is, when it comes to a pregnancy, what percentage of men willingly have the unprotected sex compared to the woman?
What percentage of them willingly?
What percentage of men willingly have unprotected sex compared to when a woman has unprotected sex? What I'm saying is, when a woman gets R,
okay,
right?
Okay.
She's not in consent. He's in consent, right? Incest. Who's in consent? So what I'm saying is, we have a problem, but why it is the only solution involves a woman, when a woman is not really the basis of the problem, because two people have to come together to have this thing, but not always the woman want to do it.
We talking.
I agree.
We talking.
Totally agreed.
We talking two people having consensual intercourse.
But I think she's looking at
No,
both aspects.
non-consensual.
What I'm
Oh.
saying is different, because when it comes to pregnancy, think about the percentage of men that willingly have the unprotected sex compared to the women. Because in cases of rape,
Okay.
in cases of R, the woman does not consent.
Right,
In cases of
right,
incest,
yeah.
Sorry, Facebook.
Yeah.
the woman does not consent.
Well, then,
But what percent, you understand? So why
Yeah.
it is you cannot get something for men to do? Vasectomy is not
when it-
reversible.
No, but
So then
they are.
when you say get something for the men to do, right?
No, but
and we talking about non-consensual, that where is a violation,
yeah,
right? Then
that man is out of his mind already.
Yeah,
he done.
yeah,
He done out of his mind already.
or if it is
No,
saying,
but
if it is
you
saying,
understand where the mindset is, right? Because what I'm saying is my argument, but my rebuttal in terms of the overturn is not about really women's rights, right? My rebuttal is something else because of personal experiences. However, in terms of the women's rights, a woman loses the right for her body. However, the woman is not the only problem in that abortion thing, because men have to do what they have to do. So why it is the focus is really only on a woman have to, you know what I mean? Put things in place for men, for birth control for men.
But I think they are. It's strange enough. But I appreciate what Eve is saying.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what Eve is saying. It's a great conversation. But strange enough, there are a lot of contraception for men. Men, however, choose not to take them as much as women. There are a lot of Planned Parenthood that actually done a lot of different things. They have this pill now. They actually started different things that they did and introduced on the men's side that they
there's
could
a pill
do.
for men.
Yeah, I think they started developing one. So
I was hearing stuff.
Yeah,
but-
so there are things that they're doing. Men, however, they don't make the decision to do it.
Yeah.
As much as a woman does.
I think that's
I think-
Eve's point.
Yes, sir.
I think that's Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So, but I don't think, I
Yeah.
don't think the fact that they don't make the decision means that they should not, like, the responsibility or their role in all of this should be less in the conversation. I believe that it should be just as important in the conversation. Why it is about the woman now, I think that's a societal issue, because we have divided up a bunch of stuff, and it's like we focus. Society has started this conversation on one train of thought, and it continues and it spirals, and then we pick it apart based on gender, as long as gender is accepted in the conversation, and then we continue to push it down the road. But I don't believe that men should be excluded from this conversation, because it is just as important, or the responsibility also lies on them as well.
And that's why I was saying earlier that abortion is just the fruit of the issue.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what Eve is saying. First of all, when she's saying this is not a win for Christianity. It's not, because some Christians who are very radical about it, they're using it to literally condemn, chastise, like rah, that kind of thing. And there's no love of God in this conversation. So it's not a win, because now we are being vilified for that, right? Totally and completely. And what she said just now is exactly what I said. It is a root. There's a root of society, because you're right. Why aren't we training our men to quote unquote behave themselves? Yeah. Why aren't they taking responsibility? Why aren't they doing what they are supposed to be doing? It's because they were never taught to, or they were shown bad examples. And why is that? It is because of the degradation in society. So abortion is just the root of it, and we
Yeah.
really have to go down into how are we raising our children? Are we raising them to be responsible adults, men and women? And even if, quote unquote, you get catch, you are also able to make proper decisions, healthy decisions, so decisions that aid, or I should say that are good for you, the father, the mother, the parents, the grandparents, because all these things are connected, and the child involved. So we really have to get down to what are our homes like and what are our communities like in order to really get a handle on this abortion issue. And Eve is right. Trinidad, it is illegal. It is illegal. However, out of 5 people here, 2 do it. It means it going on. Whether legal or not legal, it's going on. So we really have to get to the bottom of the problem, and abortion is not the bottom of the problem.
And I just want to be this guy to piggyback on Karen, that at the end of the day, this issue, and I love what she's saying, because when we look at it from a grand scheme of things, this is a sin issue. I don't want to be the churchy one in the conversation, but that's the reality of it. This is a sin issue. The nature of man is corrupted, and they need to be righteous, and the only way for them to a STEM society is for men to accept Christ. You could go to your break.
All right. Lovely.
I would like to say something or ask something.
What? Hold on.
To everybody.
Sorry, hold on. We must take a quick break, and when we come back, we will resume with Omega. Right? This is a Talk Heavy podcast. I love where the conversation is going. We'll be right back.
All right.
Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and soon and coming King. I want to invite you to the Nautical Hour, a time of prayer, a time of seeking the face of God, so that we can be able to know what God is doing in this season. This dispensation is a time where we need to know what God is doing, and therefore prayer is the way we communicate with Him, and He communicates with us. I want to invite you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Let us get an opportunity to seek the face of God together. He has something in store for you. He has something in store for me. And when we get together, the power of God, the presence of God changes things. I am Pastor Randall Rodney saying, when life gets too hard to stand, kneel. Podcasts are everywhere today, and at Mended Studios, we speak life to all podcasts. Have you or your group thought about having a podcast? Do you or your group have a podcast and want to make it better? Whoever you are, wherever you are located, Mended Studios is here to mend your wonderful ideas with great media. Take your podcast to the next level. And if this sounds like you or someone you may know, get in contact with us at 337-6709 or email us mendedtt@gmail.com.
All right, so we are back. Welcome back to the Talk Heavy podcast. All right, and on your screen you would see a flyer. So this is Emela, the concert, right? You don't want to miss one of the most anticipated events of 2022. Emela on Saturday 8th and Sunday 9th. Sound Forge comes alive at Christopher Samuel Drive, Mukarapo, that is. Tickets cost only $100 and VIP $300. So you're going to look out for artists like Positive, J Prince, Jazzy, Nahilat Blackman, Fahrenheit, Mark Isaac, JD and Nisa, and much, much more. So Saturday the 8th and Sunday the 9th of October, right? That is, we're looking forward for that. This is the album launch of the man inside here, Brandon Best.
Yes, man.
And we're very much excited to that event, right? So during the break we was talking. Oh yes, Omega. You wanted to
chime in,
right? Omega.
Yes. So
Right
what I wanted to put out there after Brandon said what he said is that, is it conscious thought for Christians and other religious people that not everyone is religious or Christian? and therefore the rules that Christians follow, pro-life, etc., it doesn't bother them. It doesn't matter to people who aren't governed under these rules because they don't believe the same things that you believe.
Yes.
Is it ever a consideration? And therefore, if the reverse is ever to happen, wherein that someone, a non-Christian, is then therefore pushing for a rule of law, etc., that goes against your Christian values, won't you therefore pick up the mantle to fight or be against it, or any of these different manners of protest, the same way that pro-choice people are with the topic of abortion specifically?
Yes.
So so that's one thing. And then what I want to continue something to what Eve mentioned with regards to essentially the ways in which women become pregnant. I mean, I always think about it that 100% of pregnancies are caused by men. Plain and simple. If they didn't do what they did, a pregnancy wouldn't occur, right? That's just facts. And there are situations that women do not consent to. Serious, grievous assault, incest, and sexual coercion that can happen within consensual relationships, in marriage, in anything that is acceptable, and the woman is not empowered or does not feel empowered, and therefore pregnancies can result from a number of different situations where a woman does not have the power in that dynamic. But therefore society, once they find out that she's pregnant, it becomes 100% her problem to solve or to deal with. And they leave the men out of the conversation. And that's unfortunate, and it needs to change. And it's something that is missing, that a lot of people aren't recognizing, aren't willing, and to accept that people are saying, well, if you don't have an abortion, don't get pregnant, you should just not engage in sexual activity. A lot of women do not have that choice. And that is just 100% the truth. And it's for a number of different reasons. They do not have the choice of not engaging in sex. They also do not have the choice of being able to protect themselves, whether by using birth control, etc. Because the person who is in power in that dynamic is in power. Yeah?
Yeah. If I could just respond, at least to the first part, because I largely understand what Omega is saying on a second point of view. Being a Christian is such an ostracizing thing, and people you would never believe, because people assume that just because you're a Christian means that you're pushing for everybody to believe what you believe, and that's not necessarily truth. I'm a Christian. I'm a man of faith. I believe my worldview starts from Christianity. That doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that you will believe that. You get what I'm saying? So I don't have the expectation that you would believe it, but I also believe, because I have a foundation of belief, it means that I would have an outlook of the universe, outlook of the world, outlook of morality, outlook of those things. And my conversation would start from there. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single conversation has to be made in social law based on just because I believe it. And I don't even think that is the issue of abortion here. A lot of pro-lifers, this is a stigma that has happened because of how divided America is. Because America's Republican Party is so predominantly Christian, it is perceived that just because you're a Christian and you are probably pro-life, it means that the law for against abortion is because it's largely just Christian. When it's not, so like they don't factor in the fact that it may be biological, that it may just simply be that this is a human life and this is simply moral code, and that we should have a social responsibility to human life altogether. It is just simply the fact that, okay, I am a Christian and these Christians want to invoke that into law. But here's what, this happens all the time. People make laws on what they believe. Secular people may say, here's what, transgenders want now to change the law so that their pronouns be respected. I have to watch you as a male man, maybe as a woman, as well, you dress like a woman, and then you say to me that you want me to call you a she. Now you are telling me that I am supposed to now accept your belief And because I don't believe that, I see that you're a man, but you're telling me that I should operate under your pronoun because you want the law to now invoke that on me as a Christian. This happens all the time. This is how law is made. People are people, and people have thoughts, and thoughts are made up of many different things. A law is made up of people, of beliefs, and they're creating laws together. Conversations are being had, but it's not necessarily because I am a Christian or we are Christians that we are saying just because we have a Christian worldview doesn't mean that we have made it in every. Just because I'm saying it doesn't mean that we have made it into law. So the conversation just simply it stigmatizes Christians because it makes it seem as though because we are pro-life, saying, yeah, this law is for the Christians. And that's why I agree with Karen. It's not a Christian win. And not just simply because, Christians are happy for it. But it's not a Christian win. It's not. It's a biological win. It's a human life issue. It's about human rights more than it is anything else. And because I'm a Christian, I also get to celebrate in the fact that I have a foundational value system that lets me put life, human life, image bearers, God image bearers, at the top of the value chain. And that's how I see it.
So do you think that going against that or contrary to that, taking human life into high esteem and high consideration, do you think going contrary to that has the potential for us to become a society where we just generally don't really have much care for human life itself?
Well, to me, I think. Now, I don't want to say that because that's a blanket statement, and it may not necessarily be that. And I agreed with the lady say that there are a lot of factors are involved, right? When the person comes to a point of termination of life and those type of things, a lot of situations are in their mind at the time. I don't think that everybody who is pro-choice is against life, Because I actually think that most pro-choice is actually pro-life. I think they're just pro-life to an extent, so they probably may have variables to their conversation. So they're saying that I don't necessarily hate humans. I'm just simply saying that I don't believe that I should, my right to choose when this human lives or dies, in me, that's what they're saying. But it's not that they necessarily hate human beings. So not everybody, I would say, the society will plunge into that place where people are evil in terms of like hate, wanting to kill people or those type of things. But I would say that the society encourages it. That we do have groups. We do have groups who have parties now. They have actual. They did this thing, this celebration for abortions now. Like there's a thing in the US where they actually have a community where they just simply celebrate abortions, and that is what you get from society. And I'm like, so how do we? Okay, it's one thing to be pro-choice, but do we have to celebrate termination of life like that? So what is that we're actually celebrating in this type of conversation? So it's a toss-up, but I still won't say that everybody who's pro-choice is evil people. I don't think that everybody who's pro-choice or who hasn't had abortion, who has an abortion, or who went through it, I don't think that they hated life or those type of things,
And yet,
can I say something?
Go ahead.
Brandon, I could appreciate, honestly, your feedback, because as much as it may not be your stance in terms of, the thou shalt not kill, but it's beyond that, it's about life and stuff. I could respect that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I am a believer, and they have some people that holding on to the thou shalt not kill. And why I will come in disagreement with that is because, you see, the Bible says that the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. And why I believe the letter kills is because left up to us, none of us are exempt when it comes to living according to the letter. We will be dead. There's nobody that is living on the earth here today that fully lives according to the letter. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if it is, you could bring somebody to me now that say, here what's going on. I live fully according to the word of God without any problems. I will shake their hand enough because I tell my baby next to me.
I call him a liar.
The letter kills. Right? The letter kills. And at the end of the day, when it is we understand that The same letter that speaks about murder is the same letter that speaks about adultery, is the same letter that speaks about fornication. But the thing is, they have people who talking about thou shalt not murder. But I telling you, if it is I slip wrong them, they ain't gonna care about their wife.
Correct, yeah.
So ease me up when it comes to you knowing the Bible as it pertains to certain things. They have certain people that burn out homosexuality because it's an abomination, right? But then they go on to talk to a girl to do a threesome. So homosexuality is only with men. Listen, let me be real here, right? Because that's what I could do. When it comes to the word of God, if you're standing by the word of God, stand by the word of God. I have
agree
no
with
problem with that. Stand by the word of God.
I agree with
But
that.
you can't be using the word of God, vilifying people, condemning people, blocking. I get blocked, delete since I stated my opinion on this. When I state my opinion pertaining to vaccines, and I telling people that I get vaccine and I believe in God's heaven, I get blocked and delete. When I try to talk about, I believe that when it comes to homosexuality, they should have the rights. It's not imposing on my stuff. I get blocked and delete. When it is I come and I state my opinion concerning this thing with the overturn, block and delete. We are the ones that's supposed to be the example. We playing ourselves for fools. And all I'm saying is, if we standing for something and we standing by the word, but we not living by the word, and it's not to say that is a struggle, it's a difference if it is you're trying, but we openly just not living the word of God, give people eyes up.
Yeah, I understand, and you know what tends to happen. The people who you tend to get the most venom from are the ones who are the least experienced in the word, and that's what that's what I've understood. I've come to see that. I've been at the end of public attack from Christians, and I know exactly how it is to face it out in the public, and you get to see people and you understand that people who operate in wisdom and who operate according to the scriptures, you tend to see them a lot more patient with people. They are a lot more open to have conversation with people, and they want to teach. They want the ability to share viewpoints, hear perspective, and share viewpoints.
Not as emotionally charged.
Yeah. You see very new, very young believers, very inexperienced believers, people who actually don't know scripture well. They're the ones who lash out, because you can't tell me that you're a mature believer and you don't have self-control. That's a fruit of the spirit.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? That's a fruit of the spirit. So you have to know how to control yourself, and you have to know to be able to have a conversation with a person. And we can disagree. I disagree with many people, but that doesn't mean that I hate them. I'm gonna lash out to them. I'm gonna blast them on Facebook. Eva's my girl all the time.
This is why I could appreciate this conversation today, because honestly, I really wasn't sure what I was going to meet today. Since I was openly opinionated about the matter, I've gotten calls, I've gotten messages, I've gotten voice notes. As I said, I've gotten blocked and deleted.
Right.
And I am telling myself, and this is my brethren and sister-in-law. So all I'm saying is that I could truly appreciate the conversation. I could truly appreciate everyone's opinion in this. I don't think anybody stated anything that I actually disagreed with. So even though they had pro-life, and pro-choice, I think that everyone stated things that I could actually understand and relate to. So I appreciate the entire conversation.
And this would have been one of the objectives of this podcast, to bring people together, and it's inclusive, right? The Talk Heavy podcast is not strictly a Christian program.
Yeah.
I want people from different walks, different statuses, different places, environments to come together and have a conversation.
Let's talk.
You understand? That is what the podcast is about. And this, I really love the conversation so far. All right. Just want to touch base with the comment section a bit. Hey, good evening to Pam Serju, one of the Mended Studios lawyers. She's saying, women go through so much, it's hard. She said, so you should have that choice, whether or not you're ready to be a mother. No one else should choose for you. All right. Michelle Bonraj, good evening to you. She's saying, to me as a mom, I didn't want kids because of the world we live in. but I have kids anyhow, not because I wanted to, but because I fear the fact that the God I serve will hold me accountable. Note, I love my kids, but it's hard to grow up taking care of kids and then having them believe me, and having them believe me. It's hard to deal with because when you set goals, it brings a greater responsibility upon you and life. But for me, I don't and won't agree to abortion. That's Michelle Bonraj. Michelle. All right. Brandon. Huh? All right. You would have, one of the ladies wanted to.
No, just saying you could have bring them a carrying us out quite far. I'll just signal it to bring in.
Yeah. But if any of the ladies want to jump in, chime in, feel free to. All right.
I wanted to say something with respect to Omega's contribution before about the whole thing about why non-Christians should hold Christian views. Correct me if I'm wrong. And in my experience, I found that there are a lot more pro-life, and I use pro-life term very loosely. But those who are against abortion, there are more non-Christians than you think. I remember when I had my abortion, the advice to abort came from my Christian friends. And the one friend who was terribly upset with me.
You serious? Are you serious?
I'm very
It makes
serious.
sense. Because
I was told how it was like by Christian friends, right? So there are a lot of Christians who may vocally say they're against it, but they're not really against
They're afraid. It's very scary.
Wow.
They're not really against it. And that's the reality of the situation. Because when Eve had her son, she wasn't Christian, but there was something in her heart that told her, hey, pull up on this decision and see how this goes. And you would find more Christians because of the life that they live in, because they are afraid, because they are ashamed, because according to Eve, they live in one part of the Bible and not live in the other part of the Bible. When they are now faced with this decision, they'll swing left. And then they go through the trauma and they will not go to therapy. They will not get healing. They will not engage in any sort of healthy activity to get themselves better. Why? Because they have to hide from it. So that's why I still don't have this conversation with some people, because I know that there are some non-Christians who have greater morality than some Christians. So I appreciate your contribution, Omega, but it's just to say, there actually are some non-Christians who would hold fast to the morality and the value of life more quickly than some Christians do.
Do you think that the Omega, I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, but if that then means that there needs to be some sort of removal of shame, removal of all of these different things within the Christian faith to prevent all that stuff, because if you didn't have the shame for doing XYZ, then you'd probably be more likely to be outward about it. Or, statistics show that when people are educated about something, they are less likely to engage in certain activities. So, the overarching idea, outside looking in, is that Christians are afraid to engage in conversation and education around, sexual health, reproductive health, certain things like that, which leads to some people to making choices that therefore leads them to along down the road end up having the hard choice of making an abortion, feeling shame because they know at the top they're not supposed to be engaging in this, but they didn't have the enough information because that was blocked from them for whatever religious reason. So maybe that should be a push within the Christian faith to educate more, to be okay with having these conversations so that, you know, the exact thing that you want, no abortions, will actually happen, because or less teenage pregnancy, less unwanted pregnancy will actually happen, because when people are educated, they're less likely to engage in certain behaviors that will lead them down the road to making these hard decisions.
Yeah, we actually did a whole conversation, a whole episode, I think it was a month ago, about actually changing the church culture. You understand? Imagine, you know, you slip. Yes, you had a whole some level of accountability.
You had a whole accountability.
Yeah, young lady, you got pregnant before marriage. Why we still putting up people in front of the church to apologize for what?
Yeah.
Apologize to who?
Correct. Yeah.
Wait, that's still happening? Like now, in today?
I think some churches still do those things. But I think again, this is here, and I so love these conversations because you tend to see that this again is a lack or misrepresentation of the actual scriptures itself. Not necessarily that the Bible portrays this type of behavior.
Right.
You have immature people. You have people that are unlearned, that are now taking on self-righteous roles because of what the little knowledge that they've had. The Bible talks about knowledge puffs up. So a man get a little bit of knowledge, he feel a little self-righteous, and then certain circumstances, he creates laws. Just like we do, creates a law and a standard, and then that standard creates shame amongst people. But it may not have been scriptural. Because the Bible talks about, you know, once a man is in Christ, there's no longer any more condemnation. So the realm of fear and shame and those type of things, when people go through these things, it's not even the way that we're supposed to approach it from a scriptural standpoint. So you tend to see that it's people, you know, people have issues. So we are all sinful, broken people, but people with the issues that are bringing this into the culture, not necessarily the scripture. So I think the conversation is good, the conversation is healthy, but I think more Bible teaching. I'll always advocate for this good, healthy Bible teaching, because sometimes what we have as well is a misconception of what the scripture actually says, and people hate Christianity because of people, not because of Christianity. They don't hate it because of the actual understanding of scripture. They hate it because of people, and people who are part of the sect of Christianity. And that is a problem that I have, because I'm like, they attack you. It's like Christian, so it's like everything is, you know, Christian, but it's not Christianity. It's people. And I think that when we get to that point and we understand that, and we deal with the scripture, we deal with the gospel, and we go to really understanding the book and really understanding what the scriptures are putting forward, I think you have a healthier society, healthier church, a healthier mindset towards a lot of these things. And these should be open conversations. It shouldn't be nothing that we hide.
Yeah, most definitely.
Justice, if I could say something.
Go ahead.
Karen said something that I absolutely love, because she said, you know, people do things, and then when they are faced with the situation, everything that they were saying about it before changes, because they were never in it. And that's why I was saying it's good to be, you know, to be able to relate, because I would even go as far as to say that there's a reason the Bible says that Jesus was touched with our infirmities. He understood certain feelings. He went through certain things because he can relate. There are a lot of us today that are speaking on topics that we really don't have the range to talk on. There are a lot of us that speaking to people that we cannot relate to. And I believe when it is you're bringing the word or you're bringing the scripture, the lack of empathy comes when it is you just really can't relate.
Correct.
So a lot of times we would say one thing and we would be like, we know what's the right thing, we know what the Bible says, we know what's the right thing to do. But when it is somebody actually does it because we cannot relate and because we cannot understand why they're doing it, because the Bible says this, that's when it is the lack of empathy comes. So they have some people who don't understand why people go for abortions. They have some people who don't understand R. They have some people who don't understand what is non-consensual. They have people that don't understand these things. So they are not going as far as to think why they would want to have an abortion. You understand? So I really like how Karen brought that in, because that is, I think that's a huge problem with a lot of us today. And when I say us, I'm talking about believers, because many times when it is we see believers fighting online, they are speaking about things they have no range to talk about. And they don't understand what they're talking about.
Correct.
People going through real things and they cannot relate and
Correct.
they cannot empathize. And that's the problem I have.
Correct.
Yeah, that relating topic is very important because I know it for myself, because I went through an evolution of how I saw abortion throughout my life. So when I was younger, I was vehemently pro-life. Like you couldn't tell me anything, right? Teenager, no, nothing. My thing was, you just don't have sex, point blank, period, and that will solve everything. And then as I grew older, it started changing, and then realizing what it is to be pregnant, what it is to be a parent, what it is to, be in certain situations that you don't have the power for, being myself, having a child, going through that. And I would say to people who have been pregnant, I think to an extent understand that pregnancy is very traumatic. It's a traumatic experience, and it can be great for a lot of people, but it can be very traumatic for a lot of us. You understand? Including the delivery. It's a whole situation, right? And a lot of us, myself included, I do not want to go through that ever again. Also, what happened after the postpartum period and all of that, the depression and all of that, I do not want to go through that again. And I know people in my mommy circles who also have similar experiences, that we don't see it as being selfish. We're thinking about it. We're thinking about ourselves in this equation, because if I have another child and have to go through that situation, I will become a broken person, and who is going to take care of the children that I already have now? I will be broken. I may do something to myself, if you understand what I mean, that may be permanent. And then who's to take care of the children that exist already? So when you think about things like that, people often look at it in a vacuum and can't relate because they're not in that situation, they're not faced with these things. But when you have an experience of going through a traumatic pregnancy, going through a traumatic delivery, having postpartum depression or anything that happens, because I'll tell you, there are also physical things that happen years down the line. And a lot of people don't understand what happens, the changes that happen to your body, being pregnant, having a child, etc. And it is very much your right to say that I do not want to go through that again. And I do not have the mental capacity, the physical capacity, or, practically the financial capacity to have more children. And I should have a right to make that decision. And in the case of like people like myself and some of my friends, you consult with, yes, the men in your life. But at the end of the day, you're the one carrying this child and experiencing these things firsthand. And therefore, I think while, yes, men do have a voice in this situation, in this issue, the predominant decision should rest with the woman, because that's her body. She's going through it. She is experiencing these things firsthand. And she's the only one who would really know what it is like.
Yeah, Omega, you actually touch on the last question. It's just about 8:31. We have about 12 minutes again, right? And I was actually going to ask if a man should have equal say, because hear me out. I actually saw a content creator on YouTube. He made this point, right? And it had me thinking. I still kind of neutral about it. It had me thinking, right? He was saying, if it is I giving you my seed, we're talking about two consensual adults here, right? I give you my seed. This is now part of me. I now have the intention of creating a legacy, right? Offspring. And that's a very, very important thing to men especially.
Correct.
The name carrying on, right? And now here it is, you're changing your mind. You're saying, yes, it's your body as the woman, right? You're saying, at the end of the day, it's my decision. I don't want to go through with it. This is going to affect me this way. there's a conflict created right there.
Yeah.
How it is we solving this issue and how it is we moving forward.
You ask a very
If it's
difficult question.
consensual adults, sorry, yeah.
Go
If it's
ahead.
consensual adults, then you have that conversation before you bless somebody with your seed. Period. You have that conversation. Do you want to get pregnant? Do you want children with me? Are we going to build this life together with children, etc., etc.? You have that conversation. Don't just do it on a whim, and then when you realize push comes to shove, when you're in it, and then you realize, oh shucks, I really not ready for this, or I wasn't ready, thinking that this was going. When reality sets in, it's a different story.
So you're saying at that point, when they had the conversation before, and now here it is the woman changing her mind, is it that her 100% choice and power over the decision at that point is superseded by the man?
I think so, because at the end of the day, how are you going to force somebody to go through something like pregnancy?
Just like how they force them people now.
But she,
and then you're gonna,
My
and
child,
then
bro.
So
here's
if-
the scenario.
but she changed
Here's
her
the
mind.
scenario.
She changed her mind.
She gets pregnant. She changes her mind. She doesn't want to go through this. You therefore say, you know what, I want this child. She say, okay, I am only going through this because you say you want it. I don't want this child. When the baby is delivered and she hands the child over to the man and walks away, she is still blamed for being an awful parent, an awful mother, because she abandoned the child, when really she already told him however many months before that she didn't want the child. So who wins in this situation?
So you're saying
Who
if
wins?
she walks away from the responsibility of taking care of the child and leaves it all up to him, that she is within her right?
It's within her right if she point blank told him that she did not want to raise this child. The same way how men have that right, and they
I
do
know
it all the
when I say
time.
that because they just bust out when they're ready. So I understand.
Yeah.
So then, so
they
then,
do it all the time.
all right.
But
So
it seems to be worse when a woman does it, because it's supposedly unnatural. Because women are supposed to be maternal when that's really
so
that's
then,
not true.
but let me be real, right? Society shames men for walking away from the responsibility of raising a child, even if he said before, months before, hey, I'm ready to be a father. I don't want to be a father.
That
Of course, it's within his responsibility to know if you don't want to be a father, wrap it up or don't sleep with she at all.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. But we
the
get
suit.
past that stage, right? He said before, he made it
Passes
known
it.
that, hey, I don't want to be a father. I'm not ready. I don't have enough money, or whatever the case is. They had unprotected sex. He says, listen, you had to terminate this child on her. And she does it anyway. Society still holds him accountable. So then, is it that?
Because I think because I think he might be able to still be called up in court, no? So
Yeah, of course. Of course. he
whether
will.
or not there was
Yeah.
agreement had before.
You see, my controversial thoughts on that is that he shouldn't be held responsible in that specific
Right. Okay.
situation.
Okay.
He shouldn't
I
be.
agree.
If he already he put his line and he drew his line in his sand and say, you know what, I don't want this. He stated unequivocally, and she still
Right.
goes through it. It's the same thing. That's her child. She should take care of it. It's 100% her responsibility. Forget about
agree
him.
with
But
that as
if,
well.
But it
if
don't
he didn't,
it don't typically
If he
go so.
didn't,
No.
That's how it is.
It don't typically happen
I
that
know,
way.
I
no.
know, and
Yeah.
that is a curse of the patriarchy, the society, and how people see gender and gender roles and all these different things, because they just conflate everything to men don't tend to look very well with regards to court processes and child support and all these different things, right? At the end of the day, we're being just realistic here, you know. But
I think
he shouldn't be. He should be.
You tend to find you tend to find double standards in the
Yeah.
issue on both sides. You know, you're gonna tend to find double standards, and men are supposed to be involved in this it is his child as much as it's her child.
In the decision, you're saying?
In the decision, because remember, they could both agree to give the child up for adoption, you know. They could both agree to do that,
Right,
and that is fair. They could do that. They could both agree.
But Brandon, hear this, right, Brandon? I met a lady over here. You hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met a lady over here, and she's well in her 80s, right? And very random conversation, a lot of random conversations across it, actually. And what I got to find out was horrific. Imagine you are married, but you're married to a sadist. You don't know you're married to a sadist.
Right.
He keeps popping you up with children, right? So you have 4 children now. However, you start to realize certain things. You start to dig deep. And long story short, she found out that he was sexually involved with all of her children, right? Now, at that time, it was a situation, I guess, in those days where women don't really, in a messy situation, the man is a provider, you don't really have much, support and all these different things. So her first thing wasn't to go to the police. She needed somehow to provide protection for her children, right? Oh my God. You for real? Sorry, guys. You hear me, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it was at that point in time, she decided that every time she got pregnant after that, she aborted, and she ended up aborting 7 children. Now, me being a Christian now, and my stance and my belief, how would you respond to her as it pertains to the abortions? Even if it is she came to you at the time and said, my husband is doing this to my kids and I'm pregnant again and I can't go through it. As a Christian, how would you advise?
Yeah, I think from the time that you had gotten the information, what that lady would need to do is to be separated from that man.
Of course, and that is excellent.
But I'm continuing.
That is a great recommendation.
Wait, I'm continuing. I'm not just saying just separate her and let her go there the while with her children and it should, as believers, we have a lot of lazy Christians, bro. To be fair, we don't go the distance that we're supposed to.
No.
To be fair,
no.
Because the distance that we're supposed to go is that we are now gonna take the church. You carry that woman, she's supposed to get support. And we can find a place for
protection, support.
We find protection for her. We feed the children, we get them into schools, we support them as they go through, and because this woman actually needs protection. This is I think goes a little bit beyond the abortion. It goes beyond for us to just simply take care of that lady and her children. And even after you found out that she had these 7 abortions, we don't shame her for that, we vilify her for that. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
We try to restore her in her process and still make the same steps. We try to still make the same steps to get her out of that situation because she is currently in a very dangerous one.
Yeah.
Now hear this, right? This is, as I said, she's 86 now. Her children big, the man is dead, and all these different things, right? But what I'm saying this to say that we always think that things are hard and fast, and it's really not. You understand what I'm saying? At the end of the day, everybody, they are all accountable for their choices. No matter if it is you put a law in place, everyone is accountable for your choice, right? And I sincerely believe that if it is we put a law in place to avoid something, and then this avoidance will cause certain ramifications, what else are we putting in place? And that's why it is when it comes to you saying the church don't really go the extra mile. I absolutely agree. But the law is the same thing, because the law puts this in place, but what are they going to do in terms of making sure that there's good foster care, making sure that single mothers are taken care of, making sure that when these babies who come out with whatever defects and they need special care treatment, are there things in place for these kids? We put one thing in place, but what we doing when it is, because when babies start coming, and all these things happening, how we dealing with that? You understand what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. Christians do the extra mile, and neither does the law. So, you know.
All right, so you know how things just go. Time flies.
Yep.
All right. It's just about 8:42, and we are out of time. But I have to say, this has been a very, very well needed and effective conversation. Only Talk Heavy podcast, we had pro-life and pro-choice people agreeing with each other, sharing ideas and sharing experiences, most importantly. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for making this possible, being here to have the conversation, and of course everyone on the chat that would have contributed as well. I find people real shy, or is it that they're scared to call in and talk about it?
I think it's controversial. They ain't want nobody bad them up.
But now we talking
They
heavy.
don't want to get blocked and delete.
Yeah, and that's the thing, boy. Like, I actually like when people disagree with me.
Yeah, that's good.
You understand? Different perspectives, and I get to learn and understand people. I wholeheartedly disagree with you, but I appreciate you having the conversation with me. I appreciate you talking with me, and I really appreciate.
We know you like debates, Justice. We know it.
Listen. I like people. I like interacting with people.
No, perspectives is everything. I agree. I
most definitely. So
sometimes you leave with a different perspective.
So Karen, Omega, Eve, Brandon Best, thank you so much for being here with us. Nice. This has been another edition of the Talk Heavy podcast. Remember, we'll be back here live once more on the Mended Studios Facebook page next Wednesday from 7 p.m. And also look out for the Nautical Hour Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Start the day the right way with prayer. All right. So in fine Talk Heavy style, we want to leave you with some local music. Hey, this is Tropical. Title of the song, Can't Complain. See you next week. Have a great evening. Have a great night.
Hey, Choppy.
No. Thankful for life, yeah. Grateful for the little things. So my tongue jam, I wake up this morning. Cause mama on her head tell her better things. Soon come all the blessings go falling. I said, Jah don't sleep, he provide for the faithful. Make sure your cup overflow, foundation stable. Give thanks, back against the wall, even when I fall. Give thanks, through you I stand tall, strength to go on. Life's sweet, life's so good. Can't complain at all. Nah, can't complain at all. Life's sweet, I can't complain. I got everything I need right now. Everything I need right now. Everything I need right now. Look, talk the things. Me no worry about a thing. Once my family cool and me G's them link. Give thanks for life, could I gone in a blink. I tell my friends I love them on a daily. Cause on these ends, 1 minute things good, next minute things crazy. Only love we defend. Give thanks, back against the wall, even when I fall. Give thanks, through you I stand tall, strength to go on. Life's sweet, life's so good. Can't complain at all. Nah, can't complain at all. Life's sweet, I can't complain. I got everything I need right now. Everything I need right now. Everything I need right now. Yeah. Everything I need right now. I got everything I need right now. All the love that I need right now. No, right now. I can't complain. I can't complain at all. I can't complain. Life's sweet.